Thank you so much, fellow passengers, and thank you, my fellow co-pilot, Michael. Today, we really just want to talk about, so the title of the talk is just co-pilot. That's it. And, with that, Michael, when we have a co-pilot, who's the pilot? Who's driving?
Yeah,
Who's flying?
It's a great question, Nish, and that's actually how we typically start off our ideation and innovation discussions is, there's all this talk about sort of generative AI, about the Copilot capability of producing content, summarizing content, but you really have to start your focus on the human actor, the individual that's authoring the prompt. What are they attempting to do? What's their business function? What are their common pain points today? Why do they even want to embark on this journey to gather up all this data and write these prompts and generate content and then do something with it? You have to really root in that sort of empathetic view of who that pilot is. And then, Nish, once we understand who that person is, where do we go next?
Well, where we go next is evolution of, moving from chatbots to copilots. So really, what is the difference between a chatbot and a copilot? So chatbot is a knowledge extraction tool. A copilot is an execution tool. That's how you have to think about it, right? Copilot gets things done. Chatbot tells you, or Copilot gets things done with your assistance, as Michael mentioned. Chatbot provides you the DIY knowledge. That is the core difference. And I think that is a huge difference for the foreseeable future as we go and adopt copilots into various facets of our lives. So as we adopt these use cases, Michael, what are the challenges? Where do you think is the next air pocket that would bring the pressure down?
Well, definitely it's tempting to see get a taste of a Copilot-like experience where you ask a question, you not only get the answer, but then you start to perform an action. So for instance, I'm in PowerPoint and I'm generating slides and you think, wow, this is incredible. I could light up so many different business functions in my organization with this capability. And I think resisting that temptation is really key up at the front, is don't give in to that temptation to have one Copilot experience to rule them all. Just as we have, to really abuse this metaphor here, you'll have commercial aviation Copilots, you'll have military, aviators will have their own kind of Copilots. You want to have specialized Copilots that are very much tailored to the functions and the roles that they're performing. So if you've got corporate finance in your organization, you can imagine some degree that's going to put a narrative around the numbers and the financial statements of that company. If you're talking about a marketing Copilot, let's say, you're going to want something that's helping with content production, content generation, and editing. So trying to sort of get all of these into sort of one specific shape with all of the data assets and all the process, may or may not work out well. But regardless, as you do that, you're going to have to think through sort of what's my process to orchestrate through that. And, Nish, like that begs an interesting question is, when you start getting multiple data sets together, how do you think through stitching these things together? Especially, what if I, maybe still need to talk to some traditional ML models as well?
Oh, yes. So the really good thing about copilots, or for that matter, AI, in general, and as you have been hearing Gen AI a lot, but what we have, we really don't want to lose out on the years of great work that we have done in traditional data science, deep learning as recently as just a few years ago, and now in Gen AI. So a great thing is to have cognitive models as an amalgamation and use them as, with Gen AI as a capability builder on top of it. So, let me take an example. We used to have fraud detection model, and a lot of us have used it. How about using fraud detection model to detect fraud but Gen AI to explain why the fraud happened. So now you have taken it to the next step. You are not losing all the years worth of work which you have done so far. You are building upon it. Use cases like this, which fetch you the next generation of outcome that was unfathomable just a few years ago. That is where this flight is going.
Sort of like frequent flyer miles.
Frequent
the
flyer
more
miles,
models I build,
absolutely.
the more credits I accumulate.
Absolutely. And so, Michael, hey, I'm signed up, right? But I need a pilot who is responsible, who makes sure my data, and all sorts of responsibilities which come on with taking this much effort. Talk about that.
It's an excellent point, Nish. A lot of times we see these efforts begin in an innovation center or a data science team in a specific organization. And there's a lot of excitement because the tech is fun to work with. It's giving me this immediate feedback in terms of the response. And I'm really excited to get it to market and to start testing even further. But what Nish is really alluding to is it's a real cross-functional exercise to bring along your compliance folks, your legal folks, your business partners who are going to help articulate this framework of responsible AI. So for instance, us at Microsoft, we have something called the Microsoft Responsible AI Standard. It's in its version 2 iteration. It's actually free for anybody in this room to go download. You do a search, Microsoft Responsible AI Standard version 2. It's what we actually have to build to. So us as part of an industry AI engineering product team at Microsoft, we get held to this standard by our own Office of Responsible AI to make sure that there's explainability, there's fairness in the model, there's the appropriate information security controls. Any data that we use in association with the model is handled with respect to not only privacy, but the appropriate jurisdictional sovereignty laws. So this structure and set of safeguards, our sort of air traffic control systems and ground crew and seat belts buckled in, all has to be in place. So that way, before you actually really take off and try to scale your use case, you know that the whole organization is kind of coming along, articulating the risk tolerance, and then baking that into the work that you're trying to achieve.
I just got a ping from the control tower. We need to change course. How about talking about some use cases?
Fantastic. Certainly, the technology is nothing without its actual application. And so, for instance, some of the things that we've been seeing at Microsoft is we've got agricultural partners who are looking at sort of the sellers of their seed and their fertilizer in different territories around the world, being able to ask about weather conditions or soil conditions or climate conditions, and then being able to recommend the right seed or fertilizer to the farmers in that area. In retail and fashion, we see that a lot of people no longer have the time or have the ability to fight traffic to get to the mall, the department store of their choice, to pick out that really fancy kurta for the next big Indian wedding they're going to. So they need to have that experience of sending in a chat and having a personal stylist as a fashion co-pilot to recommend and suggest the new looks and not only that, but how to style them once you procure them. And then finally, we're seeing this idea of knowledge bases proliferate everywhere. So whether it's in the domains like financial services, compliance, policy and procedure for HR, anywhere you have traditional sort of intranet-driven knowledge bases that maybe yesterday were 8 links deep to find the specific policy and procedure you're looking for. Now you have this ability to actually index that information, produce a searchable store, and then use generative AI, large language models over the top of that, perhaps even with small language models now coming into the fore, to have a really good experience for a line-level worker to get the exact information they need at the point they need it, and then to take a good action on it.
So I see, three some key take, here, some key repeatable patterns here. So the repeatable pattern on the use case on, a Gen AI use case can then apply to various industries. The industries can be, for, you talked about agri, there are industries in fintech, in sustainability and manufacturing, healthcare,
yeah,
and all sorts of those things. And at as an applied scientist, you would see that at the core of it, the technology would actually remain the same or similar if you are, and especially if you are using a framework to build upon it. So great. And now, let me also talk about, how can we build local, sell global? Any thoughts, Michael?
Definitely. I think it really is an amazing opportunity, not just for hyperscalers and large tech multinationals, but locally and around the world for partners. It's a wonderful opportunity because you think about where these pilots live in organizations and enterprises around the world. They do their work in office productivity tools, but they also do their work in software that you all create each and every day. So your own portal or your own applications, your own management systems. And each one of these represents a potential opportunity to infuse a Copilot. So imagine where Microsoft brings some enabling technology, fits it into your solution, your system, and it creates an immense business opportunity where together we can actually get these birds off the ground and in the sky.
Fantastic. Now I would like to, as your fellow pilot, I would like to kind of, bring us down to the ground from beyond 2024 and ground us into realities of Copilot that is available to use on the Office suite, on how can somebody build their own Copilot? Any?
Absolutely. So for instance, the Microsoft 365 family of products, I mean, folks pretty used to Word, Excel, so forth. There's a Copilot extensibility capability. So each one of these tools has a capability where you could bring your own data via a plugin architecture, and imagine you could have, say, for instance, your own Excel formulas light up from a natural language prompt inside Excel and bring data that you curate and want to pop up and populate that formula with. Or alternatively, inside of Teams, you can imagine creating your own Teams app that then also has, again, the capability to generate and summarize from a source system, let's say a project management card-based system to put that card in there, and I could chat that over to Nish about, hey, where's the status of this particular work item?
Well, so with that, I will actually basically, we are running out of time, but, we took off, we went beyond 2024, we landed back with ground realities. Thank you so much, my fellow co-passengers, and thank you, my fellow co-pilot, Michael.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll probably have one or two questions answered,
Sure.
yeah? Wow, so many hands shooting up.
Thank you. Great session.
Thank you.
Actually, I had two questions very quickly.
Fantastic.
You very interestingly, you talked about the difference between the chatbots and the Copilot. Very simply put, you said one is the knowledge extractor and other is executor. I was just wondering, like even in the chatbots, with orchestration, the intent to action was happening.
Absolutely.
Right? So is it that in Copilot, from a static wiring, you're bringing more a dynamic wiring using Gen AI? That was the
Fantastic question. Very quickly, the way I'll say it is, when you said knowledge and then orchestration. Orchestration is dependent on the workflow, and typically there is one orchestration, so hence there is only one route to fly. In Copilot, Copilot gives you options which are beyond, which are not cogitated by a human to begin with. So it's not put in the workflow. Yeah. And as a pilot of this tool, you have the opportunity to then choose what you want to do.
Great. Thank you very much. The second one is, could you just briefly touch upon the LLM modularity, which is, I think, not very much talked about in your blogs.
Absolutely.
You use OpenAI as LLM, but there is also a mention about, there is modularity.
Absolutely. Long question, very short answer is all of the options are available. Obviously, OpenAI, has, we have some exclusivity using OpenAI models, but, apart from that, public domain models and all sorts of models are available. The three folks sitting right next to you are the gurus who will talk to you about all of this and get you updated.
Hello, this is Kumarjit here. So I have just one question. So being a tech giant like Microsoft, you guys are you should kind of pioneer the path of ethical AI. Because, ethical AI, responsible AI is not only to, let's say, gender bias, to, let's say, security stuff, but also towards environment, right? Training a chat GPT model, okay, it has its own carbon footprint, right?
Absolutely.
How, as a tech giant, you are strategizing to reduce that in future?
No, it's a great point, and I think that's certainly something that, first and foremost, we can't do that alone. We can certainly provide some capabilities and frameworks. So, for instance, we have a cloud for sustainability with carbon calculator and credit. So, for instance, you could do things like measure the footprint of these models and their consumption alongside, say, your Azure billing and so forth. But really, we need the support of partners to help us understand our blind spots, because I think it's one thing for us to look at our data centers and figure out, input and output and emissions, what's going on there, but also the usage and the utilization. And I think we're still very early in our journey of understanding, especially if there's peaks in utilization that are perhaps driving more electricity consumption, or also too, like for instance, in where I'm from, back in Redmond, we just launched a geothermal plant. So the whole new East Campus in Redmond is powered by renewable geothermal energy. So there might be more of these types of opportunities for customers and partners that are willing to take bets on either renewables or collaborating over data together to see if we can actually flatten some of those peaks associated with some of the LLM usage.
Thank you. I love the analogy. So building on that, what happens when the plane gets hijacked? So context to that is, so I work in security, AI security, and we have...
By the way, my Copilot was a CISO in his previous role, so you
Much respect, sir. But what I was trying to get at is there's this report by Gartner that said that Copilot is great. It is. It's an incredible platform and an application. But what happens to security of Copilot? And then you need these other, vendors or integrators to come in and fill that gap, right? So we had an organization which is also closely working with the government of Singapore come to us, and it's very open-ended. So wanted to get your take on it.
So the first thing I would really encourage everybody to look at, OWASP, which is the Open Web Application Security Project, very famous for doing the top 10 for e-commerce web applications. That was kind of a hallmark moment where, just like where we are now in Gen AI, web commerce had those same trust issues where, you think about very early in web commerce, there was kind of a sense, was it going to make it or not? And I think two big things happened. One was OWASP top 10 for web apps. The other was PCI DSS compliance. So once you had those two things land, you really started to see trust go up because the engineerability of controls became much more prescriptive. In Gen AI, we now have the OWASP top 10 for LLM applications. So everybody should absolutely go download this. We should start, preaching this gospel of OWASP top 10 for LLM apps. Certainly not a panacea or a silver bullet, but it's a very powerful way to start the conversation and the dialogue around, beyond just the responsible AI pieces, what are the actual security controls we need to build in at the beginning of constructing these LLM applications?
I have one last ask from my fellow passengers. Samir was telling Indrani that, find out which talk was the most interesting. So just tell Indrani that this was the talk.